and I thought it was just a typical show, 2 hour show or whatever. He played like 3.5 hours. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I never am look at my clock saying, all right, are we done yet? Are we done yet? But he just played and played and played. And I didn't want to leave because, of course, me after the show, I want to go and, just, slowly lurk by the backstage area and, who could I meet? I just remember waiting and waiting. I never got a chance to meet him, but I mean, I think I might have went home. I mean, it was just so late, but I think he played 3.5 hours.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't do a whole lot. I mean, he's just
Yeah.
like, master of ceremonies. I mean, that's really, at least that was when I saw him. That's all he
Yeah.
does. He pumps at the crowd, does some singing, some barking, some noises, and just kind
Yeah,
of
he bumps around. He does
just
his
bumps
little dance
around.
from.
You know,
Yeah,
that's it, man. But hey, 60-year career or whatever out of it. So power to him,
yeah,
and obviously a lot of his magic is in the studio. Um, so then the band that you had forgotten at Lollapalooza, we then went just a year later, not even necessarily a year later, and we went and saw Fishbone March 1st. March 1st, so here we are in
yeah,
March 1994 at the Sting in New Britain, and I did
yeah,
not remember this until I read it with no effects.
yeah. I
And
remember that.
I was like, wow, no effects, no kidding. Fat Mike and the gang. Um,
Yeah,
and we met Angelo.
and Chris Dowd, Angelo, and there was another one.
I don't
I
know. I was just
forget
so
who it was.
taken aback because like Angelo was so rude to me. But like,
I think it was Bingham. I think we met John Bingham too.
oh gosh, trying to look at the lineup if I have it at that time. I just know they were
Because
coming up.
Kendall wasn't with him. Kendall was gone by then.
Yeah, he was. He was. And that was the "Give the Monkey a Brain, He'll Think He's the Center of the Universe" album,
Right, right.
which
He was gone by then.
it's actually an excellent, excellent album. I think probably personally like their best as far as like a fully realized work where it was
Oh, I
cohesive,
agree.
and songs like Black Flowers I can listen to this
Yeah,
day, and it's so it's not heavy in the same way of saying like heavy music, but it's got that chunk, and just that whole record is amazing.
yeah,
And I found out about Fishbone, kind of late in the game. I say late in the game, but that's because you and the guys in the band were already listening to them, and our band did Sunless Saturday. That's off what, Ma and Pa. Um, Great band. I mean, absolutely great band. What
yeah.
are your remembrances of even
Of
getting
that,
into them?
I just remember. I remember being a little jilted just because Kendall wasn't with him. And for the people out in radio land here in podcast land, Kendall Jones was a member, one of the original members, but unfortunately he got involved with some kind of cult of some sort, and he vowed not to play with the band anymore, but he was still writing music with the band, and I believe he wrote a couple of the songs that are on the give monkey a brain and he'll think he's a center universe record. But he is, I mean, the fight the youth and some of the Saturday, all the heavier stuff is really Kendall. But I think Chris Dowd took over a lot. I think Bingham might have wrote um, Lemon Meringue maybe.
Oh, that is such a good song.
I think Bingham wrote Lemon Meringue. I could be wrong with that one. But I think what I remember the most about the concert was, first of all, Walter Kirby. Here's a guy who only plays a couple little lines on his little trumpet there. Beep, 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 da, 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 beep, 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 da, da. I mean, they were performers, number one. And I mean, but they were accomplished musicians, but they were performers too. And, especially Angelo. I mean, he takes it to another whole world. Um,
He's dancing. He's got the cane. He's got the mic stand, and then he's like, "Oh wait, let me play some saxophone for you."
right. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's no question about that.
And he's hitting these killer notes that believe me, they're really hard to do. Just a phenomenal band. So yeah, the fact that we saw them just within that same year, to me, it was just like a testament to how good they are as performers. That you just want to
Right.
go ahead and see them perform, because again, they're another one of those bands that's kind of lost to history. Um, but around that same time,
Yeah.
um, there were a bunch of bands that were taking the horns. They were doing ska. They were also doing rock. But because I've never seen them, but I feel like I have to bring them up when we're talking about bands that are pushing genres, right? 24/7 Spyz.
Yeah.
Was it Jimmy Hazel?
Yeah, Jimmy Hazel, Joel Beethoven. Funny we should talk about Joel because he's a drummer. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and every now and then we'll talk. And I know when I say to him, here I am, 47 years old, like Joel. When I was 15 years old, I bought a pair of glasses just so I could look like you. Talk about being the fanboy. I mean, I was the total fanboy. But his drumming was just phenomenal, phenomenal. And then Rick Scator, and then Jeff Brodniks. I mean, 24/7 Spyz. There was that whole group with that funk rock, Sinister Dane. I mean, Bad Brains. Fishbone. I mean, all those bands. They kind of hugged the line of funk, of rock, and in the case of 24/7 Spyz, when they had Understanding, which was full blown reggae tune. I mean, they did a lot of reggae, but I'm just thinking of the Strength in Numbers record. And then then they'll pull out Purple, and it's a heavy metal massacre. I mean, it's this heavy double bass. Yeah, I mean, bands like that really pushed every genre. I mean, they weren't just crossover one into another; they were crossed over into about 5 or 6 different genres.
Absolutely, and that's what's kind of it's curious because when we first started listening. Well, see, so just so everyone knows, Justin comes from a musical family. His dad is an accomplished musician, and being really exposed to a lot of different styles and genres of music. So when we were playing, really heavy rock stuff, at one point I became kind of enamored with some of the stuff that I listened to when I was younger. And I was never just a quick side story. Your dad and I said, because I was really into a band called Faith No More, which kind of reminded me at that time because they were doing, they did a cover of the Commodore's Easy. And I just remember your dad so earnestly going, oh, that is just one of the best all-time guitar solos. That's just so good, and it's so simple, and it serves the song, and it's just perfect. But sorry, that's a quick digression because I'll always remember it. So now every time I hear that song for the rest of my life, it's just like, that is the perfect guitar solo, and it's perfect for the song, and there's
Piccirillo says it is, so it's got to be.
But not everyone had the kind of different exposure. So the reason I had those different kind of bands is that, my parents being divorced, my mom was listening to a lot of, top 40 and R&B, and my dad was all the rock guy. So your dad just happened to have it all in one, where he was listening to all this kind of stuff as an appreciator of music. But, as we are getting older, we're finding that the genres were getting mixed. And I think that's why when I'm talking about a Gen X podcast, is that was becoming more prevalent, where bands were less concerned about dabbling in these different things because it was like, well, you're a rock band, you can't do that. Well, why can't I do that? Why can't I go ahead and add horns? Why can't I do just a straight R&B song? So another band that I know that you'll appreciate, and I will tell you, if I say this line in my house, and I'm not going to sing it, but if I, and you are far more versed in their discography than I'll ever be, but if I say in my house, music, music, I hear music, someone in the other part of the house will go, over my head. And I've done something right as a parent if that's their response. But King's X, another band that said, hey, we're kind of at the same time period of the hair rock bands, and it doesn't mean that we don't like that stuff, and we can write that stuff and we create that stuff, but why can't we do kind of a psychedelic moon gaze kind of stuff, like When It's Love, not When It's Love, that's a different song. When It's Love is Van Halen. No. It's Love, right?
It's Love.
It's Love, where they could do something like that, and that was probably their biggest hit.
Yeah, well, one of them at least. Yeah, they had a couple of them. I think bringing them up, I think, and this is perfect for the podcast, is the fact that being 80s, born in the 70s, being 80s kids, the generation of MTV. We were talking about crossing genres musically, but I think when you talk about King's X, now you're talking about crossing genres as far as fashion. And here you have, Doug Pittick with this big mohawk, you're assuming, and we probably all assumed by looking at him, you probably thought they were a punk band the way he looked. But then you hear him and the other two sing, and they have, they sing like birds, like the Beatles. I
Oh,
mean,
so good.
and I think the fact that MTV, I mean, we saw on MTV, and again, if you saw a picture of them, you already had in the mindset what they looked like until you really started listening to them. It's like, oh my God, they can write, they can play, they can sing, and and they had some longevity. Here they are, they're still out there playing. I mean, I don't know if Jerry Gaskell's feeling better. I think he was sick. I read that he had COVID and something happened with him. I know he lost his house. I don't know if you remember
No.
yeah, something in New Jersey. There was a hurricane. We had a couple. I think it was a hurricane. You might want to double check that. But I know Gary Gaskell lost his house, and there was some kind of GoFundMe for him.
That's awful. Um,
Yeah.
and I know that Doug has been in a lot of different bands,
All
and
right.
a lot
Yeah.
of different projects. Let's check this out here. Um, wow. This is a picture of Jerry from like 2018. Um, I don't know if you've noticed this, but for whatever reason, a lot of the rock musicians from that era look so much better now. Like, and they're all like in their 60s and they look phenomenal. And it's like you look way cooler and better than you did back then.
Back
Um,
then.
so nothing is coming up for it right now, but we can certainly take a look at it. So anyone want to go out there and find out Jerry Gaskell? Maybe there's a GoFundMe or something. I hope he's back on his feet.
It was a while back. I mean, I don't know. He lost his house, or I don't know. Maybe I dreamt it. I don't know. I hope I didn't dream it, but
That's a weird dream,
yeah,
Justin.
yeah. But I had a chance to meet him. He played at Toad's Place, and I had a chance to meet him. I had him sign. I got a set list signed by him, and he was just a cool guy. I mean, but you mentioned all the other works that Doug Pittick did, and I don't know if you ever heard when Jeff Pilson and George Lynch went off away from Dokken, and they had him come in, and they had him sing. I think it was Tooth and Nail. Um, Phenomenal. I mean, it was
Really?
like,
I'm writing that down.
I'll never say better than Don Dokken because Don Dokken, but you know, I'd have to say it's pretty good. I mean, it's got a life of its own that's different from Dokken, yet it's still George and Jeff.
See, it's so funny because isn't Jeff Pilson in Foreigner?
Yeah, there we go. Everything goes back.
It's like Jeff Pilson, Kelly Hansen, like
Yeah,
Mick's like the only original member, right?
uh, yeah. Mick's the only one in recent videos. He's not even in the band. He's not even on the stage with them. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. I actually tried Googling that the other day to see where he is. Maybe he only comes out for a couple songs. I don't know.
Curious. But I did
Yeah.
hear that they were doing a tour with both Lou Gramm and Kelly Hansen.
That was a couple years
They
ago.
already did that? How did I miss
Yeah.
that? That would have been
No,
phenomenal.
it was only in three cities. It happened to be in Connecticut though. I think it was one in LA, one in Atlantic City, and one in Connecticut.
But they do it at the
I didn't
casino?
know. I went to one a couple years prior to that, but um, I wish I saw Lou right now. I'm so digging on Lou Gramm, man. I mean, there's some songs in their back catalog that I'd never even heard of, and actually we went out to dinner. My wife and my son. We went out to dinner the other night, and we went to the store, and there was the best of Foreigner or whatever it was, and I already have them all in the basement, but there was one or two tracks at the end, and I just couldn't get past these tracks. It was some of those old, brought back from the late '70s. I'm like, wow, how come I never heard this before? And Rev on the Red Line. I don't know if you know that one. I mean,
No.
I'm like all about that song right now. You should see me. I just have it on repeat on YouTube on before the kids come into school. I have it on my TV at school. You know, foreigner, 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 foreigner. Oh, kids, I got to turn it off now. But
See, I think that, they're similar. We were talking about REO Speedwagon, where, and I mentioned this last week on the podcast too, is that Foreigner has somehow kind of taken a back seat to some of their contemporaries. Like even like with Journey, like
yeah,
they were neck and neck, but then like Journey is now like this legendary thing. But what's weird, it's in some ways because Journey's ballads are less cringy. You know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
so Foreigner had these really rockers, like real rockers, real banging tunes. And then you have something like I Want to Know What Love Is, which is just like the worst garbage. I mean, Lou Gramm sings it beautifully. Don't get me wrong. And, you know, you get that choir